Welcome to the Desire to Dream podcast. I'm your host, Lo Wilder. The vision of this podcast is to provide tools on how to become successful in your finances, business, leadership development, and much more. A little bit about me: I grew up in the hood, homeless at the age of 14. I made a choice not to become a product of my environment. And today, I am a successful businessman, community leader, and inspirational speaker. It is my desire to encourage and empower you to unlock your greatness. So tune in and enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Desire to Dream podcast. I'm your host, Lo Wilder. And today, man, I have a special guest. Good friend of mine has been in Central Florida area. My man is out here just crushing his goals, doing a lot of things. Definitely look forward to getting into his story a little bit, and sharing that with us here. But welcome to the show, my brother Samuel. How are you doing, Mr. Samuel O'Banner?
Hello, I'm doing fantastic. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's a great thing that you're doing, and just happy to be a part, bro.
Man, absolutely, man. Well, like I was telling you before, we want to share, the achievers, right? We want to highlight those achievers, people who turn their dreams to reality. You have an amazing story. You've been inspiring and helping others find financial freedom, just leading them on the way. So without further ado, man, just tell the audience, a little bit about yourself, your background, and where you are today.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot to my life and components of it, but since we're talking about the financial space, I grew up in poverty, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was a struggle.
Yeah.
There was one point my mom and I, single parent household, we were homeless at one point and had to stay with my grandmother.
Mm.
And so I carried a lot of the poverty and just the poor habits, financial habits into my adulthood. I mean, you're talking, if anybody was terrible with money, low, it was me, bro.
Right.
That's why I feel like, with the turnaround that I credit God for
Mm-hmm. Praise
and
the
giving me
Lord.
the wisdom, I was the worst. So I feel like when I communicate with people, transparent. So
Yeah.
it came a point in my life, and I recently shared a video on this, again, carrying those terrible financial habits into my adulthood. My account at one point low would change it all for me. It was $757 overdrawn,
Mm.
right? And that's
Man.
when I said, man, something's got to change. There
Right.
has to be something. So I just began to really, I am a Christian, look into
Mm-hmm.
God's word, look at the biblical. There's over 2,000 scriptures on money, bro.
Man.
And I began to really study and learn and apply the principles. And long story short, I paid off my personal debt in 1 year.
Wow.
Uh, about, let's see, about maybe 9 years later,
Mm-hmm.
I met my wife, and she had $50,000 of debt.
Mm.
Had conversation, hey, this is how I want us to live, sweetheart. Are you
Right.
on board? She agreed, got married. First 18 months, we knocked out the $50,000.
Wow.
Fast forward a couple years later, we purchased our first home and we paid off our mortgage and $300,000 completely mortgage free. So,
Wow. Man, listen,
yeah,
y'all heard that, folks. 300,000 in 3
yeah,
years. His wife's debt 50,000. Man, that's just impressive, bro. Let's kind of go back, right? So you said you grew up in poverty. You were
yeah.
homeless at one point. I can relate to that, right? I was homeless at 14. I was moving from house to house, moving in with my grandmother, moving in with my sister, and we were just bouncing around, living out of a bag. And so I kind
Mm,
of, built this habit of being scarce. Like money wasn't available for us, right? So
yeah.
with your background, and being in poverty, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are either going through that right now or they've been through it themselves. What was it for you? Like, obviously you went to college, right? So what was the mindset like, coming up?
Well, so for example, I just kind of followed the pattern. Like, for example, having a car payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was just a way of life.
Right.
I figured everybody had a car payment. The average car payment, I believe, is maybe about $500 or just under $500 a month. The average
Right.
car payment.
The
I
average,
figured
right.
that, yeah, I just figured everybody in the world had a car payment that was driving. The
Mm.
idea that I can actually drive a paid for vehicle didn't even register in my mind. So for me, though, it was just ignorance.
Right.
And as I got older and realized, hey, what I'm doing now is just not working. So I think I got to a point where I realized the way I'm living currently, it's not working. Something has to change.
Right. What was it for you that changed? I mean, I know a little bit about it. So, you joined the organization or a movement, right? And that's kind of where you got the education, because we all know colleges is not teaching us, how to manage our money,
Right.
how to invest. I mean, I did have a personal finance professor, shout out to Miss Sylvia Rose, Hampton
Hmm.
University, who did, drop some nuggets when I took her course as far as
Yeah.
personal finance. And she's like, listen, don't rent, own, etc. But what was it for you that broke it? You were like, oh wow, I get it now. Or what education? Like for me, it was books, right? I became a
Right.
reader. And
Right.
so what was it for you that was like, okay, this is the move right here?
Yeah. So number one, it was God's word. I think He was instilling in me that I don't have to live that way. Right.
Hmm.
I think that's the start. And so I was
Right.
ready for a change. And then, like yourself, I began to dive into other books. There's so many different financial gurus. I'm a fan of Dave Ramsey.
Hmm.
There's some personal friends of mine who my wife and I got to meet, Talit and Ty McNeely,
Okay.
um, with His and Her Money. And I just began to listen and just fill my brain with different thoughts and ideas of
Right.
a way of life that was different than what I even imagined.
Man, man, listen, like going to Dave Ramsey,
Hmm.
shout out to Dave Ramsey.
Yeah,
I know a lot of
Uncle
financial
Dave.
people, Uncle Dave, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people like my man Grant Cardone, because I follow Grant. He's always going off on
Mhm,
on Dave. But man, listen, I learned some good tips and how to manage. One of the things that I did, I was running a multi-million-dollar business with the corporation that I work for,
mhm,
and I was making decent money, right? But I had these bad habits and I created this debt. And so one of the things Dave said was like, hey, go get a second job. And that was humility for me, because I'm running a $2 million business and I ended up working at a pharmacy store. And when I went to the store, I was working the register, and I worked there all through my high school years in college. So those who know me, where I was at. I
mhm,
was working the front, and bro, it was like embarrassing because some of my customers and contractors were coming in, buying stuff, and they were like, man, what you doing here, bro? Like, but I was
mhm.
following this plan that Ramsey, laid out. It was like eliminate debt, eliminate debt. So
Right.
I did that, man. So with that being said, right, humility, you start to change your lifestyle. You're not going out, you're not eating at all the fancy spots at the moment because you're sacrificing for this time. How
Mhm.
difficult is that? Because I think some people, they'll read the book or they'll say, man, I'm not doing that. But tell two
Yeah.
things. It's a two-part question, right? How difficult was it for you? Did you have friends that were coming at you like Samuel, come on, man? And then the second part to that is why is it so important that you do that in the beginning?
Excellent question. So it was challenging. I had to learn to say no. I think a lot
Hmm.
of people, including myself at the time, one of the reasons why I stacked up so much debt is because I didn't know how to say no to myself and to the things that I wanted. And to be honest, we live in a culture where we are taught, if even if you don't have the money, use a credit card, get it,
Hmm.
find a way, put yourself in debt. You need to have this item, this or that, whatever it may be. So it was challenging. What helped me, though, was not just paying off the debt, right? The idea, I think, for anybody to just pay off debt just because, who wants to do that, right? You see all the
Right.
money going out. Who wants to do that? I had to attach it to a greater goal, right?
Mm,
So, as a believer, I wanted to be a good steward with the money that God had given me. I also
right.
began to think about the future. Hey, what would the future look like if I didn't have a car payment? What would my future look like? And this is it when I was single, if I
Hmm.
were to get married and my wife and I were debt free or have children and we are able to leave a financial legacy for our children.
Right.
And I started to think about and attach this actions to a greater goal rather than just paying off debt.
For what's the go-to scripture? Because I got one in my head, but I want to hear yours, man, for the principle, right? Which one's
Man,
yours?
Proverbs 22:7, the borrower is slave to the lender.
Lender, that's it.
Man, and I didn't want to be a slave to anybody.
Man.
When I realized when I had a car payment, if any moment I missed a payment or two,
Hmm.
they could come repossess my vehicle.
Right.
They can call my phone whenever they wanted. It definitely felt like a slave relationship.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get these things out of my life. And
Man.
when I read that passage, it just really opened my eyes.
Man, that's powerful, bro. So for the people that are listening, right? I mean, what are some tips and strategies? Don't want to give away too much because I know you got the course and all of that, and we're gonna make
Sure,
sure
sure.
that we provide access. I'm gonna share everybody how they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can go to your YouTube channel. So we'll have that all in the description on the podcast. But give out some nuggets, some free nuggets, some little gems, for the people.
Man,
Like if you're talking about $50,000 debt, that can
right.
seem overwhelming. Not sure what the
Hmm.
income salary was, but what is some of the best practices, if you will, for those individuals that are like, man, I don't have 50, but I got 20 and I need to figure out how I can pay that down.
First of all, you got to get mad at it. You can. It takes some time in most cases to kind of gradually throughout the years accumulate a mountain of debt. But in order to really make a change, you have to get mad at it. You have to say, "I'm done with this." You got to get pissed off.
Right.
That's number one. You
Right.
got to say to yourself, "This is it. I'm done. I'm not going into debt."
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a place in my life, Lo, I would rather ride a bicycle than to have another car payment. I
Right.
kid you not. I would
Question. Hey,
rather ride a
question real
bicycle.
quick. Do you, me and my man Samuel got something in common. You still got the Camry, bro?
Yes, I do.
Hey, Camry team, let's go. Hey, when I saw
Yeah.
you with the Camry, because I'm like, bro, you can buy a nice car. Like we can get the Benz if we wanted to. We can get the, whatever we want. But hey, bro, I'm a Camry man. You're a Camry man. I mean, I had to ask because yeah, bro, that car, not only is it frugal, man, it's like, why do I need something else? I can get to point A to point B. It's still a nice ride. But go ahead, man. I ain't mean to interrupt, but that was yeah.
Oh, you're good. You're good. My wife wants me to upgrade. She drives a newer vehicle, but
Right,
she wants me to upgrade, and it gets me from A to B. And
right,
so
right.
I like the idea that, yeah, sure, I can go on a lot and buy a car cash right now,
Hmm.
but why? This gets me
Right.
from A to B. So number one, you got to get fed up with that. And then I think the
Hmm.
next thing is living below your means, right? So
Mm,
many times we are our monthly expenses are greater than our income.
right.
So you got to cut things out. Like my wife and I, we made great sacrifices. For example, cable, that's a common one. I think the average cable bill maybe roughly 130,
100.
$150
Right.
a month,
Hmm.
in that range, give or
You add
take.
internet to that, bro. It's about
There you
200.
go. Right. Well, so yeah, and so one of the things our entire time, and even to this day, we don't have cable, right?
Mm, hmm.
We see cable as a luxury.
Right.
And so we'll subscribe to maybe Netflix or something like that,
Right.
which is much cheaper. But you got to understand the difference between a want and a need.
Mm,
And once you really realize that and take a real assessment, hey, why do I have this? Is this to impress somebody else? Or is this because I want it? Or is this an actual need for my family? And by needs, we talk about when my wife and I teach with our organization, Fresh Start
right.
Financial Education, the
Right.
four needs: food, shelter, clothing, and not clothing like Gucci, basic clothing, just
Right.
to be presentable, and
Right. Right.
transportation. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean go out and financing a brand new car, something, a reliable used vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a family friend or a family member who, once they started making money, they were like, man, I'm getting me
Hmm.
a ride. They first went into the leasing the car, thought that was the best option. Why? Because they had
Mm,
the wrong information. Someone told
yeah,
them, hey, go lease a car. They put more mileage on it than they needed to. Came back, said you owe us X amount. They were like, what?
right.
And they're paying like $600-700 a month just for the car, not even including insurance. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah,
it blows my mind. But I love Dave Ramsey. He talks about plastic surgery, and that was what I did. I had plastics. I went into my wallet, bro. I grabbed my
yeah,
Capital Ones. I grabbed all my different credit cards. I straight up just cut them all up and said no more.
right.
Because what I realized, I had bad habits, bro. I was going out to eat with friends and swiping it on the card. 2-3 weeks later, the food done passed through, bro. And then two,
Hmm.
3 weeks later, I get a bill with
You get a bill.
interest for a meal that I had 2 weeks ago. So, you know, um, that's where I started out. And like you said, man, just got fed up with it. That's why I got the
Yeah,
second job and said, okay, I'm going to double down and just start paying out debt little by little, and started building, a nice little nest egg, if you will. So, man, that's amazing. We talk about paying off debt, right? But then
right.
there's this other thing we have to decide, or at some point when you graduate from debt college, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of finding a passive income or residual income. I know we have a lot of things in common with that, you know, with investment properties and things like that. That's kind of the
Hmm.
space in the world you're in. Um, why is that important to? Because for me, I know if I that the 30 years working for a corporation, getting to watch, you know, 401k, all that stuff, them
Yeah.
days is gone, man. And if people don't realize that, you know, you have to diversify, you have to create different streams of income. Most people say that, you know, millionaires, right? They have at least seven streams of income. I know for me, the other thing, I sat down with a financial advisor when I started with the corporation that I'm working with about 10 years ago. And he sat me down. We went out to breakfast. I was picking his brain. And he was like, "What's your number? What's your number, Lo?" And I said, "My number's 407 dot no, no, no. Like,
Hmm.
what's your number? Like, do you know the number that you need to retire so that you can live a life that you want to live?" And what I realized, I'm like, okay, so he taught me how to put into the 401k, he taught me how to save and create that. But one of the things he left out was creating residual income, some type of extra stream or multiple streams. Can you talk about
Right.
that a little bit? The importance of it, you know, maybe even some ideas for some people who are like, man, look, I work, but I don't have an idea of what I should do.
So what we teach at Fresh Start Financial Education is it's great to invest, whether you're talking rental properties, from a perspective of being debt free,
Mm,
right? And even so, for example, we suggest paying off everything. If you don't have the house yet paid off, aggressively try to accelerate those payments. If you have a company that has a 401k, especially if they're matching,
hmm.
get the free money.
Right.
Invest up to the match. Get that free money. So that's something to definitely take advantage of. And then there's so many. My wife and I, we invest. We have a few rental properties actually. So we're investing in other means and have different streams of income, but it's from a place of having our primary residence completely paid for and no other debt. And so it's something that we talk about. Most of the people that we work with, they're struggling with just the mountain of debt to
Mm,
begin with. And
right.
we want to help free them in that capacity. And then from an investing standpoint, there are other investors or people that we can uh, direct them to.
Hmm.
But if you have bad habits now, it's not going to change when you're trying to do different investment strategies.
Right.
You want to first address those habits because you got to get the foundation squared away first. Like you just said, you cut up those credit cards and you just had a mind change. Hey, I am not going to live the way that I have been living. I want to be free. I want to change things in my life. So it starts there,
Right.
and then we can talk about other strategies and hustling to even provide more for your family.
Man, that's beautiful, man. And how like critical is it for, you know, talking about marriage? You know, Samuel is a husband, you know, a great husband at that. He has a
Thank you.
wonderful wife, man. You know, they're family, bro. So
Thank you.
shout outs to the fam. You have a beautiful daughter, 17
Thank you.
months, right? Um,
Yes, sir.
so it's important to we're talking about legacy, right? But
Hmm.
how important is it in a marriage? Because the Bible says two shall become one, right?
Hmm.
And I see a lot of, you know, they say finances is probably one of the number one causes of divorce. Man, how important is it for married couples, if you're married now, like come
Yeah.
together and figure this thing out? Or
Yeah.
even if you're dating, you're single, and you might, you know, you might see a girl, you're like, man, she's bad, but man, she doesn't have, you know, her spending habits is bad. Like, how important is that to come on, you know, come in one page and say, yo, we need to sit down and meet in the middle?
It's extremely important. When I met my wife, I I realized and I read in a book that the number one cause of marital fights, money related issues. So I figured if
Hmm.
this is the number one cause, and some people it's debatable, one or two, who cares, right? The fact of the matter is it's high up there and it's an issue. I
Yeah.
figured if that's going to be such an issue, why not try to get on the same page, get an agreement before we even get married? And so my wife's not even support, but her help and us doing this together has allowed us to accelerate and to accomplish these goals faster. Like I mentioned, in the first 15 months of marriage, We paid off $50,000 of debt. That would not have been possible if I was trying to pay off debt and she wanted to keep spending.
Right.
We needed to be on the same page. And then what I think what it does is it by default it strengthens your marriage
Mm-hmm.
because you're having communication. You're not just having two separate accounts and oh, you
Right.
do what you want to do with your money, I'll do with my
Right.
money.
I do mine.
It's
Yeah.
there, right. There's unity in that. So I believe it's crucial.
Mm.
It's extremely crucial to be on the same page. And if you're someone like in our relationship, I was the one who was more, I'm more of the saver. My wife is more of the spender. We
Mm-hmm.
balance each other out. I help her to save. She helps me to have fun. Right.
Right. Right.
Because
Hey,
because I
balance
can
is
get it done.
important, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
Is important. And so
Yeah.
not thinking, not and valuing each other's differences,
Mm-hmm.
not looking at her like she's bad because she doesn't save as much as me, and her not looking at me like I'm bad because I save too much or I don't have as
Right.
much fun as she does. So when we are on the same page, I feel like we can accomplish anything. And so what I was going to say is if you're the saver, because I can speak from that perspective, don't just talk about saving money or just getting out of debt. Again, attach it to a greater goal. What I
Mm-hmm.
shared with my wife when I met her when she was 26, I said, if you trust me, if you follow my lead, you'll be living in a paid for home by the time you're 32 years old.
That's beautiful, man. Man,
I was
that
a I was a I was a year off, bro. She was 33 when we paid off our house.
wow.
But
Hey,
it was
a lot of people, man. Listen, there's people in their 50s and 60s that can't say that, man. So that's amazing, man. I wanna add some other nuggets, man. We talked about the
sure.
financial piece, right?
Yeah.
Because I think this is important, and I think you can speak, life and wisdom in this area. Again, you're a great husband, you're a father, but in a lot of things you're doing, right? So you have a business, you have multiple businesses, you got real estate investment properties.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this. You're also a musician. You're an artist, man. And
Yeah.
so, shout outs to that, man. We're gonna make sure the new album that just dropped a few months ago, which is fire. We're
Thank
gonna
you.
go ahead that, and I heard your wife's track too, so that was dope.
Yeah.
She gotta put me on it. I was like, okay, sis out here doing her thing.
Yeah.
But you got all these different things going on, right? You're
Hmm.
living out your purpose. You're living out your dreams. You're achieving. You're getting it, making it happen. So obviously a lot of things going on, and we only got 24 hours in a day. I hear a lot of people always complain about how they don't have enough time, right? So we were talking about managing money. Now let's kind of
Yeah.
shift gears a little bit about managing time, being able to balance out a husband, a business, etc. All these extra things. What are some tips that you can give to the people?
Man, I would say number one for me, it starts with prayer and God's grace, right?
Praise,
And I
yeah.
don't say that to be uh, politically correct or to say it as a cliche. Like He
Mm-hmm.
literally is the source of everything that we're doing. You listen to my
Amen.
music, you
Yeah.
see my beliefs infused in my music.
Mm-hmm.
When we teach about our finances, you see the core of it. You can be debt free and follow the principles that we teach and still be miserable
Right.
without a deep rooted understanding of, like you said, purpose,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
and we believe we get our purpose from our Creator and our faith in God. So um, I believe that you can't manage time. This is how I think about it. Time, as we're on this call right now,
Mm-hmm.
time is ticking. You
Right.
can't manage time. You can only manage yourself within that space of time.
Whew, that's deep.
So you can only manage yourself. So what I try to do is Ephesians talks about man making the most of every opportunity.
Mm.
And I want to live a life that maximizes my gifts. And I
Right.
want to help as many people as I can for the purposes of anything that I do, anything that I want my marriage, my wife, my family to do. I want to point people to one that's greater than me, right?
Yeah.
And to my God.
Man,
So
it's
with
beautiful.
with that as my purpose, man, and know where
Mhm.
God has brought me from. It's the fuel for everything that you may see us do.
Right, right, man. That's beautiful, man. And the word is powerful, right? It's so much knowledge and wisdom, and a lot of people, they just don't understand, right? That God has already laid out. Not only that, He's
Hmm.
also given us the provision. Like everything that we need is inside of us. It might be in seed form, and we need
Hmm.
time and to cultivate and develop and
Right.
become the person that God. Because see, I'm going to tell you this, like sometimes it's just timing.
Yeah.
I know for me, like the amount of money I'm making now, God wasn't trying to give me that 6 years ago. You feel me? Because I would have been, it would have been a disaster. And so sometimes, man, God isn't, you're not going to give a 12-year-old the keys to the Benz, and say, here you go, this is your ride. It takes time. Here, start out with the hoopty, and work your way up. Unless you're rich, and that's just the way you do things. But yeah, man, that's a wonderful thing, man. I appreciate that. One of the scriptures that I was thinking about is leaving an inheritance to your children, right? So we're talking about generational wealth. And so, I want, one of the things my wife and I, we agreed on was, let's think 7 generations deep. Like, so Jaden, he's 15 months and he's already taken care of. Like so now I'm working on his children. Right. And so we're trying to go 7 generations deep, man. So, man, I appreciate it, bro, man. I love the knowledge and the wisdom, man. I know, we talked a little bit about everything, but definitely appreciate you. For those that want to follow Samuel and his wife, man, y'all, I'm going to have all the social media platforms that he's on, the course, how to get into the course, the website, all of that good stuff. Before we go, one last thing, if you can help someone right now to transform their life, and we talked about the word, but what can they take away from this podcast and say, man, what he just said really changed my life, it transformed my life? What would that be?
It depends. I mean, so I think life is about maturity. And I once heard a wise man say, maturity is learning to delay pleasure for a greater reward. So you have a goal in mind and don't get distracted from that goal. You have to tell yourself no to a lot of the distractions and things that just set you off course. And if you stay focused, and if you keep that goal in mind, I mean, literally every day, sometimes we try to do so much in one day. Just take a little chunk each day, and eventually you'll make progress. Every day, just move in that direction. That's what it's about. And also, I would tell whoever, every life is a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a quick race. So don't be so focused on the end result that you lack joy in the journey.
Right.
Enjoy the process.
Man, that's powerful, man. One of my favorite quotes is trust the process. Trust the process, man. I think of Joseph, and Joseph trusted the process, man. And so, man, that's what's up, brother, man. Listen, I appreciate you, man. Give the fam my love, and we'll be in touch, brother. Appreciate you coming on to the show.
Most definitely, bro. Keep doing what you're doing.
Man, no doubt.